Hey, it feels different, right?
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Fantasy Sports. Today I'm going to be getting into week 6 of the NFL. Obviously I was busy last week with midterms and everything, so I was not able to cover week 5. Week 5 was just as good as week 6. Obviously bye week's coming into play now, so there's a lot of teams that were off this week, and a lot of teams that'll be off next week like the Bengals. But yeah, I just want to start from Thursday Night Football, head down. We had a London game this week and obviously a good Monday night and Sunday night football game. Very exciting week, a lot of upsets, 2 5-0 teams. No one's undefeated anymore, obviously, after the Eagles and 49ers dropped. So definitely very interesting, and I want to get into each game and talk about what I saw this week. So let's start with the Broncos-Chiefs game. That was on Thursday, and I thought it was an extremely good game. For the most part, it was pretty boring, right? With that being said, I thought it was an extremely good game because it showed a lot for the Broncos. Broncos are a very weak offensive team, and it's weird because Russell Wilson had a really good passer rating up until this game, and he'd been really clean with the football, and then he threw 2 picks and barely threw 100 yards. So it was an odd game, but I think it shows that when they need to win a game, you know what I mean? Not when they're just trailing and the defense is lax and Russ Wilson can just pick apart a defense that is up 3 scores. The offense gets very lackluster and it relies a lot on the defense to make plays, and obviously it made a couple plays, but 19-8 was the final score and the Chiefs did win. So I think the biggest thing for the Broncos is playmakers. Obviously Courtland Sutton had a big touchdown catch, but there's no one on that offense that really shocks me when I look at them. Greg Dulcich isn't that good, Jerry Jeudy hasn't been that good, Javonte Williams hasn't been that good. No one on that team has really stepped up, and I'm excited to see if someone maybe does step up, but we'll have to wait and see. Until they get a piece. I think they will wind up trading Pat Surtain and Jerry Jeudy, though, before the end of the year. For the Ravens-Titans game, this was a good game. Ravens looked really good. Lamar looked really good. I feel like he has a really solid game every single week. He's been going out there and doing a lot of good quarterback stuff other than running the ball. He's been making the right reads, making the quick throws, staying in the pocket well. The Titans look kind of a mess other than Derrick Henry. Their defense was very weak against a pretty bad offense in the Ravens when it comes to rushing and passing, at least this year so far. But with that being said, they've gotten better each game. But the Ravens honestly do look, I shouldn't say bad offense, but a bad talent offense when it comes to players that don't really step out the box, and other than Zay Flowers and Lamar, and make you really worry, because Mark Andrews has not been the same player since he was 2 years ago. But the Ravens still look a very solid team, and the Titans, Derrick Henry had that big run. Malik Willis stepped in, didn't do much. Ryan Tannehill had, I think, 2 picks before he went out. So it was a lackluster game on the Titans' part, but really good game from the Ravens. It was a very clean game, and I liked a lot of what I saw. As for the Panthers-Dolphins game, they won by 21. The Dolphins looked the part again. I mean, they blew out a team that looks weak. Panthers are now, I'm pretty sure, let me go check. I think they only have 1 win. Nope, they are 0-6. They're the only team without a win in the NFL, I'm pretty sure. Very, very bad team. Bryce Young has not played up to that part yet. That offense, again, is a team that, just like the Ravens, has no one to really stand out. You obviously have players like Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, but those aren't, game-winning players. So it's a very bad offense. As for the Dolphins, Devon, Tyreek, Jalen, Raheem, that offense is fast. They're good. I mean, it's just every week you see them and they continue to do more and more. So it's super impressive, and I'm excited to see what they do week in and week out. For the Texans-Saints game, this was a really interesting game. The Texans wound up getting the win, but the Saints looked really bad on offense. Derek Carr, I don't know if he's been fighting that injury and what that has done for him, but he has looked very weak when it comes to throwing the ball in short yardage and long yardage, but medium yardage, he's been fine. It's just really odd for me because I know how good he can be, and when he started the season off, Chris Olave was really good, Michael Thomas was really good. Chris Olave's kind of fallen back, and it seems as maybe it's the play calling, because Chris Olave has these really bad routes. I mean, I have him in fantasy, so I'm a little biased, but with the routes he runs, it's super short routes. It's really odd. It's not like he's running these deep ball routes, running these routes where he can create separation one-on-one. It's just very short routes where he would get killed by a linebacker or so on and so forth. It's just very, very much not what I think a wide receiver 1 would be doing on a team that seems to be struggling in the passing game. As for the Texans, Damian Pierce didn't get really any going, but C.J. Stroud still looks really, really good. I've been loving what he's been doing on offense. I've been saying that since week 1 of the NFL, and I think with that being said, he will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. For the Commanders-Falcons game, I didn't really get to watch this one, but I did see a couple highlights. I saw Kyle Pitts catch his touchdown. Drake London went for a career-high yards. And, obviously Brian Robinson got in the end zone. But the Commanders had a pretty solid game. I know I said I didn't watch it, but I did see a majority of the clips of it. What I did notice from it was Desmond Ridder. Obviously, this was his first loss at home ever, or like in multiple games. So it was a big loss for them. But Sam Howell looks good in games that he can control. It's really odd when a game gets out of his hands. It gets out of his hands fast. When he can keep himself in the game and like they can win, they really look solid on offense and on defense as well. The Falcons couldn't really get anything going other than that first drive with Kyle Pitts. So it was really interesting. Really good game. Other than that, any takeaways? Terry McLaurin has been kind of really lackluster this season, and I feel like Jahan Dotson has been too. I had him, stepping up this year, and I feel like neither of them have really taken the bull by the horns and done anything. But, still a long season, still the second half of the season to go, so it'll be interesting to see. Colts-Jaguars game, this was just a blowout. Anthony Richard is now set to miss the season. Trevor Lawrence got injured in the fourth quarter, but Travis Etienne kind of took over, and Trevor Lawrence played a really solid game. I think he had 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. The defense also stepped up big time. Not a lot going on in the rushing game. A lot of passing attempts by Gardner Minshew, and he had 3 turnovers in this game, if I'm correct. He had a fumble loss and 2 picks, or maybe 3 picks. And that was the first time he's done that this season. So it's interesting to see where the Colts are going to go. The Jaguars obviously now 4-2, so they're a pretty solid team. I'm pretty sure they're leading that division. Definitely interested to see what that division winds up, playing out with the Jaguars and Texans. Very, very, very good division, obviously, other than the Colts and Titans, you could argue. For the Bengals and Seahawks game, this was a boring game. Not much happened. Jamar Chase didn't have a great game. He had a lot of targets, and I think he had 8 catches for 90 yards. But it was boring. The offense, Geno Smith, I know he's so good, but he does so many bad things when it comes to passing the ball. It's so odd. It just seems to me as though he gets I know a bad game's a bad game, but it's so weird how he can't flow on offense when he doesn't start well. I've said that before. I think I just said that, about, Sam Howell, but it is very much apparent in Geno Smith's game too. When it comes down to a bad game for him, it's a bad game. It's not going to be one that he can recover from in the second half or anything. So it's a little interesting to see, but he's going to get it. He's one of those quarterbacks that always seems to come out the next game better. I know the week 1, they took the loss to the Rams. They played the Detroit Lions next week. He had 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. But not a big loss for them at all by any means. They played the Bengals. The Bengals have been hot since they started off 1-3. Joe Burrow seemed to get a stride back, and same thing for Jamar Chase in that defense. Bears-Vikings game, this was a messy, sloppy game. A lot of injuries. Justin Fields wound up dislocating his thumb. DJ Moore got injured. The offense didn't look good. The Bears were home after Dick Butkus had died. It was the first game back. It was 19-3. Like I said, low-scoring game. Not really a lot going on. Kirk Cousins did struggle in his first game without Justin Jefferson. He did pretty good. But it just came down to he didn't really. This is really interesting. I'm just noticing that there's 3 19-point scoring teams. Anyway, there was just a lot of struggle on the Vikings offense in general, and that's going to be the usual, especially when they miss their wide receiver 1. Alexander Mattison did have a lot of yards for carries, though, which I like to see because, their running game hasn't been going on too well, so definitely interesting for them. And as for the Bears, I think they're, going to need Justin Fields to get back as fast as he can. They said that he might miss week 7, and that'll be an ugly game for sure if he can't go because, man, that offense looks bad without him. For the 49ers-Browns game, this game was very interesting. The 49ers came down first drive of the game, 8-minute drive, 80 yards, finished with a McCaffrey touchdown. And then after that, they just kind of got sloppy. Deebo Samuel got injured, Trent got injured, McCaffrey got injured. So you can't put all the blame on, what's his name? You can't put all the blame on Brock Purdy. But, with that being said, obviously, with the injuries and everything going on, I know the Browns were playing with a backup quarterback, but the backup quarterback, PJ, looked very much better than the previous week when they played the rookie. And they obviously went down at the end of the game when they were down 17-16, got that game-winning field goal. And the 49ers went down, and the rookie, for them, their kicker, missed the game-winning field goal. But that's what you get when you cut Robbie Gould and, you move on from a veteran who's made, kicks like that time and time. But with that being said, I do like what I saw out of both teams. Browns defense at one point was the best defense statistically in the league, although the 49ers might have the best defense in the league. So that was a really good defensive game. Not a lot of offense going on. It was extremely exciting to see the Browns win over a team that obviously was undefeated and seemed as though they were going to go undefeated for the foreseeable future. For the Patriots Raiders game, this was an ugly game. Garoppolo wound up getting injured. Mac Jones didn't do too much. I know Ezekiel took a screen to the house on one play, but then it wound up getting called back. Patriots didn't really do much. Raiders really didn't do much. 21-17 game. Devontae Adams didn't have any big plays. Jacoby Myers has had a couple of solid games now strung together, so definitely interesting for that fantasy purposes. And as for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson has still been pretty weak for also fantasy purposes, but lot of game to be played. I think at this point though, when I keep saying a lot of game to be played, there is at some point, at some capacity, and there is the playoffs. But I think Ramondre Stevenson is one of those players that's past what he can actually provide at this point. And if you want to trade him, I mean, I know I don't give too much fantasy advice. That's just someone who I feel is now, even when if they get a different quarterback other than Mac Jones in, I just don't feel like he's fitting how he did last year, as opposed to this year in the offense that the new offensive coordinator is running. Lions-Bucks game. This one was a sloppy game. The Buccaneers brought out the creamsicle uniforms. But Amon-Ra had a really good game. David Montgomery had a really good game. Jared Goff had a really good game. They all got touchdowns. They all looked really, really good while doing it. So I think it was really interesting to see what they can do. But Jahmyr Gibbs coming back next week with David Montgomery out will definitely make things less worrisome for the Lions, because I know at some point they're going to have to get David Montgomery back and going with the injury that he just re-aggravated his hamstring. So Jahmyr Gibbs coming back is huge for them. Obviously, rookie that they drafted in the first round. They need that. For the Buccaneers, it wasn't really, a game that I would say defines who they are. Obviously, they had a loss to the Eagles, and now they have the loss to the Lions. I don't think at all that they're a bad team. I think Baker at some point will be not exposed. That's not a great term to say, but I think people will realize that Baker is an average quarterback at best. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so much he can do. And I think that's what limits the Buccaneers a lot. Although their defense is weak, I think Baker does obviously limit their offense. Even with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Rachaad White, there's only so much that a guy like Baker provides to an offense. For the Eagles-Jets game, big upset, 14-20. I know this was a game that shocked a lot of people, and the Jets fans were really happy about. My cousin was really happy about. Hurts had a really bad game. He threw 3 picks this game. Zach Wilson played a very clean game. The Jets defense stepped up really big, obviously with the 3 picks. Even though they didn't have any Sauce Gardner, they had no DJ Reed, I think. They were missing a couple other guys. They stepped up huge, and I think that was a really big game for the Jets to win at home. And I think if they can shift the momentum, obviously if they're a big win like this, get another win. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has been a freak. Everyone's been talking about how he's been, on the road to come back. So if that winds up happening, that could be huge, because that's really interesting to see what he's been doing training-wise. Recovery-wise. But big win. I don't think this, again, when a 5-0 team loses, I don't think it's usually a big deal, because they're 5-0 at one point. Hurts probably just had an ugly game, and the Jets played a pretty good defensive game, so not much more to go off there. For the Bills-Giants game, that was a game that worried me. I know after the game was over, Josh Allen said an ugly win still counts as a win. But sometimes they come out and they look really flat. And, in the week 1 they did that. And this week they did it. Obviously, then they go ahead and beat the Dolphins by, a significant margin, and it confuses you. But I think at the end of the day, that's what the Bills, what happens with Josh Allen and the Bills. Sometimes the offense doesn't get going, and Josh Allen is the type to just not be able to cap a game off. Obviously, he wound up throwing 2 touchdowns, and he finished the second half good. But against a better team that's not the New York Giants, I don't think you're going to be coming out. You're going to be coming out after only putting up 6 points against arguably like a bottom 2 team in the NFL with a backup quarterback, and expecting to win that game if you're playing a better team like the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Ravens or the 49ers. So definitely interesting to see how they fix that. As for the Giants, not really much to say. It was a game they were heading into planning to lose with a backup quarterback and a weak defense, playing against the top 5 team in the NFL right now. Cowboys-Chargers game, this was a really good game last night. I really enjoyed the Chargers at home, and it sucks that they wound up losing, because this would have been a huge win for them. But it was the offense that looked really good. Dak looked really good, I guess. Not the offense. Tony Pollard couldn't really get it running, but the offense in the passing side of the ball, which is a main concern for them, as for Dak, looked really good, and I think that was really exciting to see. For the Chargers, they looked just as good on offense. They played a pretty clean game, both sides of the ball. I think it was really interesting. I just think it was something that for both teams was needed. A non-defensive game. Obviously, the defense came up big for the Cowboys in the end when they picked off Justin Herbert to end the game. But yeah, very clean game, very solid game for both teams. They looked really good. They both looked like this would be a playoff matchup. I think the Chargers have a pretty solid record now, 3-3. No, they're 2-3 because, yeah. But with that being said, I think they're a team that's better than 2-3. I think they should be 3-2 at best. Or maybe 4-1. It's a team that has had some tough losses against the Dolphins, against the Cowboys, just in general. So I'm definitely looking forward to what they can do. Justin Herbert, I'm just looking at the stats right now. 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then the interception at the end of the game. And Austin Eckler didn't do too good. He only had 14 carries for 20 yards. But I think he had a couple receptions. Yeah, he had 4 receptions for 30 yards. I'm not sure what that offensive line is going to look like, when it comes down to, giving a guy 1.9 carries per yards. And Eckler's a good guy, a good running back, but this thing can go for Tony Pollard. He had 2 yards per carry, he had 15 carries for 30 yards. Maybe just a good defensive matchup when it comes down to the run game. But a lot to cover in the NFL this week. It was super exciting. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I did. And next week, same thing, going to cover week 7. So as always, tune in next Wednesday. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you.